Hello dear learners, welcome to this SWAYAM NPTEL online course on inclusive education. I am Dr. Umakant Prasad, an assistant professor from Department of Education, Vishwabharati Shantiniketan. Today we are going to discuss lecture number 26, that is the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009. During this lecture, we will discuss the historical background of Right to Education Act 2009, the key provisions of RT Act 2009, prohibitions during the Act RT Act, and 7 chapters of RT Act and significance of RT Act 2009. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009 is a significant act in India which made education a free and compulsory for every child between the age 6 to 14 years old. This act came into effect on 1st April 2010 and was a crucial step towards fulfilling the promise of quality education for all children regardless of their background. The main goal of RT Act includes making education free, which means the government covers all expenses like fees, uniforms and textbooks and so on, that the child is left out due to lack of money. It also makes education compulsory by placing a legal duty on the government to ensure that every child is enrolled in a school, attends regularly and completes their elementary education. The history of RT Act 2009. The RT Act 2009 did not appear out of nowhere. It is the result of a long struggle to make education a fundamental right in India. Especially the history starts with the Supreme Court verdict that was in the case of Unikrishna versus Government of Andhra Pradesh. Early efforts and constitutional changes. Article 45 was included in Indian Constitution in its original form under directive principle of state policy. It stated that the government should aim to provide free and compulsory education for all children until they were 14 years old, but it was not a strict legal requirement. So, this was the duty of the state government, but this was not the fundamental right at the time. However, over the decades, activists and legal experts argued that education was not just a policy goal, but a basic human right. This led to significant movement in 1993, when the Supreme Court of India in the case of Unikrishnan versus State of Andhra Pradesh declared that the right to education was essential part of the right to life under Article 21 of Indian Constitution. This was an important decision that paved the way for future changes. The 86th Constitutional Amendment. The Supreme Court's ruling eventually led to a major legislative change. In 2002, the government passed the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. This was the most important step in the history of RT Act. This amendment inserted Article 21 into the Constitution, making education a fundamental right for children between age 6 to 14 years old. This meant that the right to education was now legally enforceable and not just a policy goal. It changed Article 45 to state that the government should provide early childhood care and education for children up to age 6 years. It added Article 51 AK, which made it a fundamental duty for parents or guardians to provide educational opportunities for their children between 6 to 14 years old. Now, let us discuss the formation of RT Act 2009. Education had become a fundamental right in 2002 as we know. So, the next step was to create a specific law to implement it. The government spent several years drafting and refining this law. The RTE bill was finally passed by both houses of parliament by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in 2009 and the law officially came into effect on 1st April 2010. On this day, India officially joined more than 135 countries that have already made education as fundamental right for their citizens. This final act provided a detailed framework and a set of rules to turn the constitutional promise of education into a practical reality for millions of children across the nation. There are many key provisions under RTE Act. This Act gives every child between the age 6 to 14 years old the right to receive free and compulsory elementary education. Its goal is to create an education system that is not only accessible, but also of good quality, equitable and fair for all children regardless of their background. Free and compulsory education. This provision is the cornerstone of the Act and has two main parts. First is free education and second was compulsory education. Free means that no child has to pay any fee, charges or expenses that might stop them from going to school and completing their elementary education. According to the Act, the government is responsible for providing essential items like uniforms, textbooks, notebooks and other learning materials at no cost to the child or their parents. Compulsory education. Compulsory places a legal duty on the government and local authorities. They must ensure that every child in the age group 6 to 14 years old is admitted to a school, attends classes regularly and finishes their elementary education. This means the government must actively identify the children who are not in school and take necessary steps to bring them into the education system and to attend their schools. No detention policy. To reduce the fear of examination and the pressure on children, the Act introduced no detention policy. Prohibition on failing or expelling. This provision states that no child can be held back in the same class, expelled from school or forced to pass a board examination until they complete elementary education up to class 8. The main idea behind this was to focus on a child's all round development and continuous learning rather than on a single final examination, though this particular provision has been some change in the recent years. Age appropriate admission. The Act makes a special provision for children who are out of school. Catch up support. If a child has not been admitted to school or has dropped out for some reasons, they must be admitted to the class that is appropriate for their age. For example, a 10 years old child who has never been to school would be admitted to class 5. In order to help them and catch up with their classmates, the school must provide them with a special training to bring them to the same learning level as their classmates. Reservation in private schools. This is an important step towards creating a socially inclusive society. 25% quota The Act requires all private unaided schools to reserve at least 25% of the seats in their entry level classes like nursery or class 1 for children from disadvantaged and economically weaker sections. This allows children from less privileged background to get a high quality education and helps in bringing social divides. The government pays the schools for the cost of educating these students. School management committees. The Act encourages community involvement in school governance. Community oversight. The formation of an school management committee is mandatory in every government and government aided schools. These committees are made up of parents who must constitute at least 75%, teachers and representatives from the local authority. Their main role is to monitor the functioning of the school, prepare a school development plan and oversee the use of government grants. This gives parents and the local community a direct say in how their school is run and how well their children are getting education. Teacher qualifications and training. The quality of education depends on the quality of teachers. So, the Act addresses this by mandatory qualifications for teachers. It specifies that all teachers must have the minimum academic and professional qualifications set by the National Council for Teacher Education, that is NCTE. A student teacher ratio. The Act also sets a minimum student teacher ratio, for example, 30:1 in primary schools to ensure that every child gets proper attention from their teachers. Infrastructure development. The Act ensures that schools have a safe and proper environment for learning, such as essential facilities. All schools must meet certain infrastructure standards. This includes having adequate classrooms, a separate toilets for boys and girls, access to safe drinking water and a playground. These basic facilities are crucial for the health, safety and well-being of the students. Continuous and comprehensive evaluation, that is CCE. The Act shifted the focus on evaluation from a single high stake final examination to a more holistic approach, that is continuous and comprehensive evaluation, such as all round assessment. The continuous and comprehensive evaluation system evaluates a student's learning throughout the year and not just at the end of the year. It takes into account their academic performance as well as their skill in co-curricular activities and personal development. This helps in identifying learning gaps early and reduces stress and anxiety related to the examinations. Prohibition of screening procedures. To ensure fair and equal access, the Act strictly prohibits certain practices such as no discrimination. Schools are not allowed to conduct any kind of screening procedures like entrance tests or interviews for a child or their parents during admission process. This prevents discrimination based on the child's family background, caste, religion or gender, etc. Focus on quality education. The Act is not just about getting children into the school, but also it is about providing them with a meaningful and quality education. Child centric learning. The curriculum and teaching method under the Act must be developed to ensure the child's all round development. The goal is to make a child free from fear and anxiety by creating a child friendly and child centered learning environment. Accountability and grievance redressal. The Act defines the roles of different government bodies and provides a way for people to address problems. Clear responsibilities. The Act clearly outlines the duties of the central and state governments, local authorities and parents. Grievance redressal. It also establishes a system for addressing grievances. This means that if a child's right to education is violated, there is a legal mechanism for people to raise their concerns and get them addressed. There are 7 chapters of RT Act. Let us discuss these all the chapters. The Act is divided into 7 chapters, each addressing a different aspects of this right, from the basic definitions to the duties of the government and the responsibilities of the schools. Chapter 1 is preliminary, that covers the basic details and definitions need to understand the rest of the law, such as short titles and extent. It states that the Act is called the right to Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, and that is applied to entire country. Definitions. It defines all the key terms used in the Act in a simple way. This includes child, that is age 6 to 14 years, appropriate government, that is central or state government, local authority, etc. This section ensures that there is a clear and common understanding of all the terms used throughout the Act. Chapter 2, that is right to free and compulsory education. This is the core of the Act, that is establishing the fundamental right itself. Free and compulsory education. This section states that every child between ages of 6 to 14 years old has the right to free and compulsory education is a neighborhood schools. Free means the child does not have to pay any fee or charges. Compulsory means the government has a legal duty to provide this education and ensure that the children are attending the schools. There are some special provisions under the chapter. It includes a crucial provision for children who have not been to school or have dropped out. Such a child must be admitted to a class that is appropriate for his or her age and receive a special training to help them catch up with their peers. Right to transfer. This part gives a child the right to transfer from one government or government aided school to another school. Schools must provide a transfer certificate immediately, and a delay in getting the certificate cannot be a reason to deny admission to a new school. Chapter 3, that is related to duty of appropriate government, local authority and parents. This chapter clearly outlines who is responsible for what, such as duty to establish schools. It is the duty of the government, that is central and state government, and local authorities to set up schools and provide infrastructure for a neighborhood school. Sharing of financial responsibilities. This chapter details how the central and state governments will share the financial burden of implementing the Act. Duties of government and local authorities. The government is responsible for providing free education, ensuring that all children are enrolled and attend school and providing good quality education. Local authorities like municipal corporation or panchayats are responsible for maintaining records of children in their area and ensuring their admission and attendance. Duty of parents and guardians. While the Act places the main responsibility on the central and state governments, it also states that it is the duty of every parent or guardian to send their child to elementary school. Pre-school education. This section also mentions that the government will work to provide pre-school education for children below the age of 6 years, which helps prepare them for further schooling and education. Chapter 4, Responsibilities of Schools and Teachers. This chapter details the specific responsibilities of schools and the people who work in them. Schools responsibilities. It is the key provision, and here is the 25% reservation for children from disadvantaged and economically weaker sections in private and unaided schools. The Act also prohibits schools from charging a capitation fee, any kind of donation, and using any screening procedure for admission. Prohibitions. The Act strictly prohibits physical punishment and mental harassment of children. It also bans the holding back or expulsion of a child until the completion of the elementary education, that is class 8. Norms and standards. It specifies the standards that schools must meet to be recognized, including minimum infrastructure requirements like classrooms, toilets and drinking water, and a required people teacher ratio. School Management Committee. This chapter mandates the formation of an school management committee in every government and government aided school. The School Management Committee, which includes parents and teachers, is responsible for creating a school development plan and monitoring the school's functioning. Teacher qualifications and duties. The Act sets out the qualifications and training required for teachers and detailed their duties, such as being punctual, completing the curriculum on time, and holding parent-teacher meetings. It also bans teachers from engaging in private tuition. Chapter 5, that is curriculum and completion of elementary education. This chapter focuses on academic and learning aspects of the Act. Curriculum and evaluation. It states that the curriculum should be designed to ensure the child's all-round development. It should be child friendly, free from fear, and should teach children to explore and learn without being confined to rote memorization. It also mentions a continuous and comprehensive evaluation system. Certificate of completion. A child who completes elementary education must be awarded a certificate. The Act moves away from a pass or fail system and focuses on a continuous assessment of learning. Chapter 6, that is protection of rights of children. This chapter sets off a system to ensure that rights of children are protected and that people have a way to address their concerns, such as monitoring and grievance redressal. It gives power to national and state commissions for the protection of child rights to monitor the Act's implementation. It also provides a way for anyone to file a complaint if a child right to education is violated. Advisory councils. The Act calls for creation of a national advisory council and a state advisory council to advise the government on how to implement the Act effectively. The seventh and the last chapter is miscellaneous. This final chapter contains various other important provisions to make the Act work smoothly, such as power to issue directions. It gives the appropriate government the power to issue directions to schools and local authorities to ensure that the Act is followed. Protection of action. It provides legal protection for any action taken in good faith under the Act. This means officials are protected from legal challenges if they are doing their duties to implement the law. Power to make rules. It gives the government the authority to make rules for the proper implementation of the Act. Key prohibitions. There are many key prohibitions of the Act. This is one of the most significant prohibition in this Act. that is capitation fee, the RT Act makes it absolutely illegal for any school to demand a fee from parents or any type of charges. The goal is to remove financial barriers and ensure that a child admission is not dependent on the family's ability to pay extra money. A screening procedure, the Act also bans any kind of screening procedure for admitting a child. This means school cannot conduct interview with the child or their parents or use any other selection method that gives preference to one child over another child. The only exception is a random method like a lottery system for 25% of seats reserved for children from disadvantaged groups in private schools. This rule ensures that admission is not based on the child's or parents' background, social status or perceived intelligence. Prohibition of physical punishment and mental harassment. This prohibition is aimed at making school a safe and positive space for every children. Physical punishment. The Act strictly bans all forms of physical punishment such as hitting, caning or making a child stand in a stressful position. Mental harassment. This includes any act that causes mental distress or humiliation to a child such as constant scolding, bullying or making fun of a child in front of others. These provisions protects a child's self-esteem and promotes a respectful classroom environment where students feel safe to learn and express themselves. Prohibition of holding back or expelling a child. This is a very important provision that was later amended, but its original intent was to prevent dropouts. No detention policy. The RT Act originally stated that no child could be held back or failed or expelled from a class until he or she complete elementary education up to class 8. The idea was to prevent the high dropout rates that was often caused by children failing exam or losing confidence. Later amendment. While the original act had this no detention policy, it was later amended. Now, at the end of the class 5 and class 8, students may be held back if they fail an examination, but they must first be given an opportunity of remedial instruction and re-examination. Prohibition of running and unorganized unrecognized school. To ensure a basic standard of quality, the Act requires all schools to be officially recognized. The Act mandates that no school can be established or operate without obtaining a certificate of recognition from the appropriate government or local authority. This certificate is granted only if the school meets the minimum norms and standards for infrastructure, teacher qualifications and other essential facilities as laid down in the Act. Running an unrecognized school is punishable offence, which ensures that all children receive an education that meets a certain minimum standards. Prohibition of development of teachers for non-educational purposes. This rule is designed to ensure that teachers can fully focus on their primary role of teaching. The Act strictly prohibits the development of teachers for any non-educational work. This means teachers should not be assigned tasks that are not directly related to their teaching duties, except for a few specific national tasks. The only exceptions are for the decennial census, elections to local bodies or legislatures and disaster relief duties. This ensures that a teacher's time is dedicated to the students, which is crucial for maintaining the quality of education. Prohibition of private tuition by teachers. This prohibition addresses a potential conflict of interest and promotes fairness. Prohibition of private tuition, that is, the Act prohibits any teacher employed in a school from engaging in private tuition. This prevents a situation where a teacher might neglect their duties in the classroom to force a student to take private lesson from them. Fair access to education. By banning private tuition, the Act aims to ensure that all teachers have equal access to the teacher's knowledge and attention during school hours without feeling pressure to pay for extra help. Significance. The Right to Education Act 2009 is a powerful tool for social change, aiming to create a more equitable and inclusive society by ensuring that every child has a fair chance at a quality education. Education as a fundamental right. This is the most crucial aspect of RT Act. By making education for children age group 6 to 14 years old a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution, the Act places a legal obligation on the state and central government to provide it. This means promoting inclusivity and equity. The RT Act has several provisions that are specifically designed to reduce inequality in the education system. The Act ensures all private unaided schools to reserve 25% of their seats at the entry level for children from economically weaker sections and disadvantaged groups. This provisions is a significant step towards social inclusion and helps bridge the gap between privileged and less privileged students by giving them access to the same educational resources. The Act strictly prohibits discrimination against any child on the basis of caste, religion, gender, and creating a safer and more welcoming environment for all students. Setting minimum standards for schools. To ensure that the education provided is of good quality, the RT Act specifies certain minimum norms and standards that all schools must follow. Such as infrastructure, the Act mandates that schools must have proper infrastructure including all weather buildings, adequate classrooms, separate and functional toilets for boys and girls, and a playground. This has led to a significant improvement in school facilities, especially in rural areas. Teacher qualifications. The Act requires all teachers to have the necessarily professional qualifications. It also sets a specific people teacher ratio to ensure that teachers can provide individual attention to students, improving the quality of teaching. Creating a child friendly learning environment. Prohibition of corporal punishment. By banning physical punishment and mental harassment, the Act ensures that school is a safe space free from fear and trauma that helps children to develop their confidence and love for learning. Age appropriate admission. For children who have never been to school or have dropped out, the Act allows them to admitted to an age appropriate classes. They are then given special training to help them catch up with their peers, preventing them from feeling left behind or humiliated. Holistic curriculum. The Act emphasizes a curriculum that focuses on child's all round development, helping them to explore their potential and talents. Community participation and accountability. The Act empowers the local community to participate in the school's functioning. The Act requires every government school to form a school management committee, which includes parents, teachers and local authorities. These committees are responsible for monitoring the school performance, and preparing a school development plan, ensuring that the community has a say in how the school is run. In conclusion, we can say the Right to Education Act 2009 is an important legislation that has transformed the elementary education in India. Its core purpose is to ensure that every child, regardless of their social or economic background, has the right to free and compulsory education. It is a legal commitment that makes education a fundamental right for children between the age 6 to 14 years old. The Act promotes social inclusion through its provision that private unaided schools must reserve 25% of their seats for children from disadvantaged and economically weaker sections. The Act sets minimum standards for school infrastructure such as proper classrooms, toilets and playgrounds. It also mandates the appointment of qualified teachers and sets a specific student teacher ratio to ensure a good learning environment. In simple terms, the RT Act 2009 is a comprehensive law that has created a framework for universal elementary education. While there are still challenges to its full implementation, the Act has laid a strong foundation for a more inclusive and effective education system, with the ultimate goal of empowering every child through education. There are some references here. Thank you.